If you set a marble down on the floor of a $10 million luxury penthouse in Dubai Marina, it shouldn't move. But in one of the district's most exclusive super tall towers, that marble rolls on its own. Not because of poor flooring, but because the entire 60-story structure is tilting. Rising 200 meters into the desert skyline, this hyper-luxury residential icon features 400 premium condominiums. When it opened, it was marketed as the ultimate oasis for global billionaires, tech executives, and high-net-worth expats. But almost immediately, the tower began sinking unevenly into the ground. Leaning relentlessly toward the Arabian Gulf, latest monitoring data reveals the top of the tower now leans a massive 29 inches off true vertical. A frantic $120 million engineering rescue was launched to halt the settlement and pull the skyscraper back to straight. But while the sinking has finally been arrested, the structural tilt, which engineers confidently predicted would be corrected by 4 inches, has only recovered by a single inch. This is the story of how Dubai's most prestigious real estate dream transformed into its most terrifying engineering embarrassment. This is a crisis born from a critical foundation decision made to save time and money during the mid-2000s construction boom, a gamble on reclaimed land that created a problem that could not be undone. Now, as intense desert heat accelerates thermal expansion, the structural glass is under unprecedented fatigue, and deep basement levels are battling mysterious water leaks. To understand how a mega tower full of the world's wealthiest expats started sinking into the sand, we have to look below the glittering promenade. We have to dive deep into the geology of a city built where the desert meets the sea, and expose the terrifying gap between a building that is technically certified as safe and a building that anyone would actually want to live in. The file is open. To comprehend the structural nightmare of this Dubai Marina icon, you have to look at the ground beneath the luxury yachts. The entire site rests on reclaimed coastal land. 2 decades ago, this prime real estate was nothing but tidal flats and shallow Persian Gulf waters. If you drill down through the tower's footprint, you pass through highly unstable layers. First, a thick crust of artificial marine fill and loose desert sand. Below that sits a highly compressible layer of soft marine clay and silt, saturated with saline groundwater. Only deep down, past 60 meters, do you find the solid carbonate bedrock of the UAE's geological shelf. Here is the single most critical engineering fact. Almost every nearby super-tall skyscraper in downtown Dubai, and the marina is anchored deep into that solid bedrock. The neighboring megastructures stand on massive friction-bearing piles, driven the full depth to solid rock. This tower does not. When the developers broke ground during the mid-2000s real estate rush, they opted for a faster, cheaper foundation design. They poured a massive 3-meter-thick concrete mat foundation resting on roughly 950 reinforced concrete piles. But instead of drilling 60-plus meters to lock into bedrock, these piles stopped just 25 meters down, suspended entirely in the dense sand and marine silt layers. In theory, friction piles work by gripping the surrounding soil along their entire length. In ideal conditions, they are perfectly safe. The design team's computer models confidently projected the tower would settle just 5.5 inches over its entire lifespan. But the simulation underweighted one devastating factor: the sheer crushing weight of the building. Unlike the lightweight steel framing used in many global high-rises, this tower was constructed out of massive, heavy reinforced concrete to withstand intense desert winds. The finished skyscraper imposed an estimated 11,000 pounds per square foot of constant pressure onto a foundation suspended in sand, which sat directly on top of compressible marine clay. The weight acted like a heavy boot stamping on a wet sponge. By the time the luxury tower opened, the deep clay layers began to consolidate rapidly, squeezing water out into the surrounding soil. The sinking started instantly, far outpacing every optimistic model, setting the stage for a multi-million-dollar structural disaster. The crisis escalated rapidly as the surrounding district evolved. Between 2010 and 2014, massive infrastructure projects kicked off less than 30 meters away, including deep excavations for adjacent luxury high-rises and underground parking hubs. To keep these massive construction pits dry, contractors began aggressively pumping millions of gallons of groundwater out of the hypersaline coastal aquifer. This intensive dewatering altered the subterranean landscape. Pulling water from the earth dramatically increased the effective stress on the marine clay layers directly beneath our tilting tower. It accelerated the exact structural consolidation that was already destabilizing the foundation. The developer claimed this massive neighboring excavation was the true catalyst for the disaster, while infrastructure authorities countered that the tower had already sunk nearly 10 inches before their below-grade digging even commenced. By 2014, the physics of the uneven settlement became impossible to ignore. Because the northwest corner of the building was sinking faster than the rest, the differential settlement generated a structural lean. Inside the upper floor penthouses, the physical reality manifested in terrifying ways. Heavy glass doors stuck in their frames. Hairline fractures spread across immaculate drywall. More alarmingly, the intense Arabian heat began compounding the structural stress. As summer temperatures soared past 45 degrees Celsius, the natural thermal expansion of the tower's massive concrete core clashed with the unyielding tilt. The structural glass facade began experiencing severe glass fatigue. Residents reported hearing ominous creaking and popping sounds during peak temperature swings, as the exterior glass panels groaned under uneven warping pressures. Down in the deepest basement levels, the situation was even grimmer. The tilt fractured water barriers, allowing highly corrosive, saline Gulf groundwater to seep through the concrete foundation walls. Chunks of structural concrete began to spall and crumble, exposing internal steel reinforcement to salt water. The market response was swift and brutal. This wasn't anonymous housing. It was a vertical playground for high-net-worth expats who had paid up to $10 million per unit. When news of the 16-inch lean finally leaked to international real estate journals, the illusion of flawless luxury shattered completely. The public revelation of the tower's structural instability triggered a massive wave of panic through the Dubai luxury real estate market. Property values for the premium units instantly crashed by 30 to 50%. Multi-million-dollar penthouses that once commanded top-tier prices on the secondary market became completely illiquid overnight. A wave of complex, closed-door legal warfare erupted among expat homeowners, the master developer, the main contractors, and structural consultants, with the tower trending on global real estate forums as the leaning skyscraper of Dubai Marina. Municipal regulators convened an independent board of elite forensic structural engineers to evaluate the building's immediate safety. Their verdict was definitive, yet deeply paradoxical. The building was structurally sound and fully safe to occupy. The uneven settlement had not compromised the concrete core's ultimate capacity to withstand high wind loads or seismic activity. It was not at risk of collapsing. However, the real crisis wasn't structural collapse. It was serviceability. The building was tilting at a rate of nearly 3 inches per year. Structural engineers issued a stark warning. If the total lean at the top reached 40 inches, the tower would hit a terminal failure threshold. At that angle, the ultra-high-speed elevator tracks would warp, and the vertical drainage and sewage plumbing lines would cease to function due to the severe angle. The building would become an uninhabitable ghost tower, completely detached from its multi-million-dollar luxury branding. By 2019, a massive confidential settlement was brokered to fund a radical $120 million engineering intervention. The man hired to design the rescue was one of the most respected forensic structural engineers in the world. Famous for investigating major structural failures globally, his solution was a masterclass in heavy engineering. Drill 52 ultra-deep perimeter piles, down 75 meters, punching straight through the unstable marine clay to anchor firmly into solid bedrock. These massive piles would then be structurally bound to the existing concrete mat using a heavy reinforced collar. The objective was to transfer millions of pounds of the tower's crushing weight onto the rock, halting the sinking and allowing engineers to jack the heavy northwest corner to recover the tilt. Work began under intense scrutiny, but the fix immediately ran into severe trouble. In 2021, as heavy machinery vibrated the site and drilled through the deep, sensitive marine clay. The monitoring sensors went off. The soil disturbance was accelerating the clay consolidation. The building began sinking and tilting faster than it had before the repair started, adding 3 inches of western lean in a matter of weeks. The project was ordered to a dead halt as engineers faced a terrifying reality. Their cure was actively killing the patient. Faced with disaster, engineers radically downsized the rescue plan. Instead of 52 perimeter piles, they installed just 18, concentrating them strictly on the 2 sinking faces of the tower. This reduced soil disturbance during drilling. By mid-2023, the critical weight transfer was complete. The sinking finally stopped. The tower had even risen slightly out of the sand. On its primary objective, the fix worked, but the tilt recovery was a massive failure. Computer models predicted the building would pull back towards straight by 4 inches. Instead, it recovered just 1 single inch, leaving a staggering 28-inch lean permanently baked into the skyline. Lead engineers defended the result, claiming tilt recovery was always a secondary goal. Worse, monitoring data has surfaced a haunting new anomaly. While the new bedrock piles firmly hold the tower's perimeter, the unsupported center of the massive concrete mat foundation continues to compress into the deep marine clay. Experts warn the foundation may be dishing, meaning the skyscraper is no longer just tilting. The center of the floor is starting to bend. The financial fallout is staggering. Repair overruns forced millions in sudden assessments onto expat owners who didn't cause the crisis. Even today, units sell at massive, permanent discounts. Buyers know they are purchasing space in a building that permanently leans, faces extreme desert heat expansion, and may be warping at its core. The tower stands safe and occupied, but it remains a monument to hidden risks. It proves that no matter how gilded the lobby or how spectacular the views, a skyscraper is only as stable as the invisible engineering choices buried deep in the sand. If you were shopping for luxury real estate today, would you buy a penthouse here at a 40% discount? Or is the structural reputation simply too broken to fix?